September 11th, 2001, 19 terrorists hijacked 4 commercial jets. We all know the result. 2,974 people died, including 343 firefighters, 60 police officers, and 24 people who are still missing. 90 countries were represented. This was in reality an assault on our world and a betrayal of what could be in a world under God's reign. Bobby Kennedy wrote, "Tragedy is a tool for the living to gain wisdom, not a guide by which to live." As we remember the 10th anniversary of this tragedy, I wonder if we have grown in wisdom as inhabitants of this planet we call home. I wonder if 9/11 has hardened us and in some ways even taken away our humanity. I wonder if 9/11 has guided us on a path leading not to fuller living in this world, but rather a wider pathway of fear and hatred. A few months from now, at the time of the consecration of the wine, we will be praying this prayer. "Take this, all of you, and drink from it, for this is the blood of the new and eternal covenant, which will be poured out for you and for the many, for the forgiveness of sins." At that moment, we will be asked to remember that the blood of Christ is poured out, not only for us who gather here, but for the many who are out there, who have not yet experienced God living and acting in their lives. As followers of Christ, we are asked to allow our lives to become an act of God, just as Jesus' entire life was an act of God. An act of God is not, as we sometimes think, fear, anger, threats of death, destruction. It is not life at the expense of others. An act of God is living, is giving life, pouring out our lives for others. On this anniversary, I think of the firefighters and members of the rescue squads and the police force who died. I think of the people who walked through the ashes, caring for the injured, the lost, the frightened. For me, as I watched, there was God acting. There was God pouring out God's life for the many. A very simple, but a very meaningful portrait of God acting in the world. I believe that is what we are called to be doing, each of our lives, becoming an act of God. In our homes, in our parish, in our community. As Catholic Christians, we are asked to choose life, to live life, and give life. That means pouring out our lives for the many. We cannot look to the heavens, or across the ocean, or to another for the answer. We need to look deep into our own hearts. In the gospel today, Jesus expands the arithmetic of forgiveness, 70 plus 7. When I reflect on all who have died because of 9/11, whether innocent or guilty, perpetrator or casualty, ideologically correct or not, I see Christ saying from the cross, "Forgive them." And sometimes we still ask, but how many times? There are 2,975 stories, lives, and identities that we remember on this 10th anniversary. I believe that each of them, representing those 90 countries, would be the first to tell their loved ones and us, forgiveness is the only way. Forgiveness is the only way to liberate us from the past. Forgiveness is ultimately the only path to wisdom. Forgiveness is the only path toward a world of hope and compassion. The word covenant means relationship. Even at the consecration of the wine today, we will be asked to share with Christ a new covenant. The possibility of a new relationship with the world is set before us and offered to us. There we have a moment to glimpse a new world, fashioned on the principles of peace and justice, one in which we become, under God's reign, more human, more tender, more sincere, more compassionate, and more forgiving. We have a moment to commit ourselves to the sacredness of human life. As we remember 9/11 this weekend, it is not a time for a narcissistic nationalism, but rather a time for us to remember that we, as citizens of the United States of America and people of this world, when we gather here in Christ's name, we are proclaiming Jesus as Lord, and that means that all the Caesars and Pharaohs of our lives are not Lord. When we gather here in Christ's name, we are proclaiming that we are willing to pour out our lives for the many, and that with Him, in Him, and through Him, all we do for the forgiveness of sins. God bless you. Amen.